Good afternoon. I'm Richard Lonsdale, Chairman of the Elm Planning Commission. I call the meeting to order. Today is Tuesday, June 17th, 2025. The time is 4 p.m. Staff, please take roll call.
Commissioner Richard Lumsdale.
Here.
Commissioner Bob Howard.
Here.
Commissioner John Graver should be attending on Zoom. Commissioner Dana Allen.
Here.
Commissioner Ann Warman.
Here.
Commissioner Christopher Lay.
Here. Has everyone had the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Hey, has everybody had a chance to read the attached minutes? Yes. Ann, you had a chance to look at the minutes?
Yes, I have.
Hey, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor, say for approval, say aye. All against, say nay.
Aye.
Okay, minutes have been approved. Has everyone had an opportunity to read the agenda?
Yes.
Yes.
Is there any conflict of interest? I'm sorry, Ann.
I said yes. I've
Okay.
had-
Thank you. Are there any conflicts of interest present between any commissioner and an agenda item?
No.
Okay. Hey, staff communications?
Thank you, Chair. Gary Cooper, Planning and Building Manager. I'm going to be brief because we have some presenters who are generous enough to give their time tonight, so I want to try to get to them as soon as we can. We did discuss the Planning Commission, potential Planning Commission retreat last month. We are about to execute a contract with a facilitator. His name is John Doan. He's recently retired as the city administrator for the city of Tumwater. So he's got loads of planning experience. So I thought it'd be really good to have someone with that sort of a background. We have been looking at probably more like the first week of August now. I know I said last month we would try to do a little sooner than that, but his schedule doesn't really kind of clear up until the first week of August. So I'm hoping that I can get feedback on you all. Maybe I'll send out an email tomorrow about whether you'd be available on August 7th, which is a Thursday. Based on the feedback I got earlier, that day of the week actually seemed to be the one that most people could accommodate. So we're thinking August 7th, probably from 10 a.m. until 2:30 with a half-hour lunch that we will be providing, and it will be at the community center. And then I don't really have anything to say about the schedule that I submitted to you, but I just wanted to lay out, what the end zone date looks like, which is December 31st, and the deliverables that we're going to be leaving along the way. And with that, I'll conclude my communications.
Okay, is anyone in the audience would like to address the commission? Comments are limited to 3 minutes and 5 speakers. Comments on matters listed on the agenda are welcome. If anyone wishes to comment, please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record. Okay, no public comments. Staff, is there any unfinished business from the last meeting?
No.
I would like to add, being as Commissioner Johnstone submitted his resignation from the commission, we need a third person for the subcommittee in updating the business processes and creating new bylaws. Is there another commissioner that would like to fill that position? Or if not, I would fill it if nobody wants to do that.
Hey, Anne, I see your hand is raised. If you need to speak, just go ahead and speak.
Okay, instead of raising hands.
Yeah,
Um,
you're good to go.
I'm willing to work with Dana and Chris on this, on the procedures. But I am busy in the next couple of weeks, so I won't be available until after that. I did want to let Gary know that August 7th works for me, but I will not be able to easily check email for the next week. So it's so sending an email, I'd rather just let him know now that August 7th works for me.
Okay, that's great.
Okay, so, okay, and I'll go ahead and write you in for the third person then for the subcommittee. Can you, is it possible to do a little bit by email before?
Not in the next week and a half, no. Sorry.
Well, okay, that's fine. Okay.
Yeah, unless you want to come babysit for a while. You
Yeah.
want?
And I'll go ahead and put you down for the third person then.
Yes.
Oh, okay, thank you. Okay, staff, is there any new business?
Yes, sir. So over, I actually don't know what period of time, but I'm sure we will find out. The jurisdictions in Thurston County have been working on developing a document called the Community Wildfire Protection Program. City of Yelm, I think, was represented by our chief of police. And it's got Thurston County and Lacey and fire districts, and many members have been participating in this. So as you know, and we'll see in our next month's packet of materials, one of the things that was added to the Growth Management Act for comprehensive planning was to include goals and policies to protect basically urban wildfire strategies. So you'll see that those goals and policies are in our new draft. So this is really timely. So I will invite our representative, Haley, to give you a brief presentation of what they're working on. Sure, yeah.
Well, thank you for having us tonight. I really appreciate you making time on the agenda. My name is Haley Morris, and I'm here with my colleague Elizabeth McManus. And we work for Ross Strategic, which is an environmental consulting firm based out of Seattle. And we have been supporting the Thurston Conservation District in developing the Community Wildfire Protection Plan for South Thurston County. So I'm just going to provide a little bit of an overview of what the boundary is for South Thurston. The Thurston Conservation District worked with the Thurston Regional Planning Council, who identified in the 2024 Hazard Mitigation Plan that the southern portion of Thurston County has the highest risk for wildfire and the most significant history of wildfires. There was the 2017 Scatter Creek Fire, that affected about close to 400 acres, as well as the Mima Road Fire or the Bordeaux Fire that impacted close to 300 acres. And the boundary is set by the fire districts in the southern portion of Thurston County, which you can see there. Hi, thank you. So there's 3 requirements for a community wildfire protection plan set by the Healthy Forest Restoration Act of 2003. The first one is collaboration, and this includes collaboration from a stakeholder group, which needs to consist of local fire departments, different agencies, as well as the State Forest Service and the Department of Natural Resources. And then also community input from the broader community that the CWPP is addressing. Prioritized fuel reduction is the second one. It needs to identify high priority locations for fuel treatments, and then emphasis on cross-boundary treatments. And then the last one is structural ignitability. And this really puts an emphasis on individual responsibility of homeowners to make sure that their structures are home hardened to reduce that wildfire impact. Thank you. So what is a CWPP? It is a collaborative community effort to determine, prioritize, and plan actions that protect life, property, and infrastructure from wildfire. And a CWPP needs to include planned action items. And so in this plan, there's recommendations that the stakeholder group developed to help mitigate wildfire risk. And what a CWPP is it's not a legally binding document. So there are no regulatory or legislative requirements that the community needs to address, but there are different strategies that are recommended in the plan that the stakeholder group developed to make sure that risk is reduced and to help build wildfire resilience in the community. So as I mentioned, community partner and engagement is very important. And so this plan first started in September is when we got the contract. And our first step was to identify the stakeholders and kind of develop a core team to focus on developing content for the CWPP. So we worked with the Thurston Conservation District to develop a list. And then we contacted all of the folks that we thought would be good to be included in the stakeholder group. And then that was really like assessing the district and community capacity, who's able to really attend 5 meetings and be able to provide the input that we need to put in this plan. We also gathered community input. This was done through a community survey that the Thurston Conservation District developed and distributed, as well as 2 community engagement meetings that we held in person. And then just really what was important to us was ensuring that diversity and representation was kind of at the core of this whole process.
Excuse me, is there a purpose behind the color coding, or is that just?
It's not. These were some slides that the Thurston Conservation District took from an organization called the Ember Alliance, and they've kind of set some standards for a CWPP. And so these are slides that came from them, what they thought was good to include. And so we've been kind of copying their process a little bit. Good question. So I'm going to go through kind of what the focus of the meetings were. And so we had 5 stakeholder meetings. We had 2 community engagement meetings, as I mentioned. 3 of our stakeholder meetings were online and 2 of them were in person. And then our last stakeholder meeting was a combined stakeholders and community engagement meeting. And I'll just run through really quick kind of what the focus was for each meeting. Each of the different focuses for the meetings corresponds with the chapter in the plan. So we wanted to really make sure that we were focusing the meetings on the content that we needed to put in the plan. So the first one was a community profile. So really understanding from the stakeholders what is data that we have and what are some resources that we need for this plan, as well as identifying what their priorities are for mitigating wildfire risk in South Thurston County. The second meeting was focused on hazard and risk assessment and WUI, the Wildland Urban Interface. These are split into 2 different chapters in the plan, but we combined it into 1 meeting. So stakeholders helped us identify where the WUI area is and different fuels that are in the area that need to be prioritized and addressed. And then understanding the high wildfire risk areas and the vulnerable populations in the area. And then the next one is a community engagement meeting. And this meeting was also to understand the community's perspective of what their goals are for reducing wildfire risk and helping us to understand from their perspective as well what the high wildfire risk areas are. The third stakeholder meeting was a mitigation and implementation strategy focused meeting. And this is where the stakeholders shared with us projects that they think would be helpful for us to include in the plan, as well as projects that are already happening and on the ground and the ones that need to continue. And then the next meeting was a monitoring and evaluation meeting. So this is where stakeholders helped us figure out what are some strategies that we can set in the plan to make sure that the projects are being monitored. And then also understanding when they think would be useful to evaluate the plan. Some plans meet every 5 years, some stakeholder groups meet every 5 years to update their plans, while some meet annually. So our stakeholder group decided it'd be good to meet annually just to make minor updates to the projects. And then every 5 years to do a major update on the plan pending funding. And then our last meeting that we had, which was an in-person meeting, was to just kind of share with the community what we have put in this plan, and to get any final input from them. And then the projects that I mentioned, we have these ranked in the plan. So they're ranked by low priority, medium priority, and high priority. And we got this information from the meeting that we held. The stakeholders helped us identify which ones should be prioritized over others. And so they shared with us that they feel that the fire adapted community projects are really ones that they think should be prioritized. And so that goes into next is project type. And so there's fire adapted communities, which is community group engagement and public education efforts to encourage individual and community action. The next project type is fuel reduction, and these are both small and large scale treatments to mitigate vegetative and structural fuels. And then the last one is wildfire response, and this is emergency management planning to coordinate people and resources. And this is really like the Department of Natural Resources and the fire districts that are really leading the wildfire response area. And then I just wanted to show all of the different groups who were really involved in this process. The Department of Natural Resources, they had some folks at all of the meetings, and they were a really integral part of this process, as well as we had the Nisqually and the Chehalis tribes at all of our stakeholder meetings. And then all of the fire districts that are listed there. And it was also really great to see representation from the different landowners in the area. We had a lot of ranchers at the meetings. We had Wolf Haven there. So it was just really great to get different people's perspectives on why this plan is important and what really needs to be implemented in this plan. And then we thought it would also be good to show a couple of projects that directly could impact Yelm. One is a wildfire ready neighbors launch that the Southeast Thurston Fire Authority held on April 26th. And it was a launch to promote a wildfire ready neighbors and FireWise program. And so these are programs, if you're not familiar, that the fire districts and the conservation districts work with community members to harden their homes and make sure that the vegetative fuels are being managed on their properties. And then another project that the Southeast Thurston Fire Authority recommended is to partner with the Thurston County Emergency Management to identify primary and secondary evacuation routes. There aren't really any evacuation routes in Thurston County in general. And so the Southeast Thurston Fire Authority is really wanting to prioritize that, especially in their service area, which would impact Yelm. Awesome. Awesome. Well, if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Yeah, I have a question. So you had listed on here about the project priorities with the different priority levels. Is there a time frame that gets associated with that type of priority level, as in like a high priority within like 2 years versus a low priority that might be 10 years? Or can you shed some light on that?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we also do have in there ranked year-round projects, seasonal projects, ones that will take 1 to 2 years, 2 to 5 years, and then 5+ years. And the stakeholders didn't really rank it based off of how long it will take, just based off of wildfire risk.
Thank you.
I do have a question if it's okay. So I thought that DNR was in charge of putting together a map of the urban wildfire interface areas, right? And it was supposed to be for use in doing land use planning, making land use planning decisions and such. But when I've tried to look up the map, it doesn't look like it's done. I'm just wondering, is that the case? Okay.
Yeah, I'll take a first stab at this. They have developed a map, but there's been a lot of issues with this map. And so they're in the process right now of developing a new one, and I don't know when it's coming out. But yeah,
Just curious.
yeah.
I will note we had a one acre grass fire yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, luckily it's put out quickly. It did jump the street now on 103rd. Unfortunately, none of the homes were lost. I think on that drive over here. I did have one question, if I may. Chris Carroll, the official and fire marshal from City of Young. Do you find in other cities and districts that the fire authority or the city staff are working with property owners on mitigating vegetative fuel?
I'd say it's the fire districts really doing that. Yeah. And it's kind of dependent, like Southeast Thurston Fire Authority, they got a grant to be able to do this work, and so it's kind of funding dependent. But the Conservation District has also been really involved in working with folks on the Wildfire Ready Neighbors program specifically.
And the term wildfire doesn't simply apply to the outlying areas. It could be a wildfire in the center of town.
Yes, correct.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I was just hoping to see too, I know you mentioned that there's a packet going out next month. So we just kind of wanted to know the next steps as well. Or we're hoping to get signatures from county commissioners as well as the different cities in South Thurston. If the plan is approved.
So I would need, we're primarily tapping into your plan to help us with setting up goals and policies for the land use element of our comprehensive plan. I'm assuming that our chief of police would know that question in
Okay.
terms of next steps, but I will ask him. I'll reach out to him.
Okay.
Try to get you an answer.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome, thank you.
You certainly don't have to sit through the rest of the.
Okay.
Haley comes from Lakewood and I come from Olympia, so. She wants to go.
Yeah. Understood.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Haley, they have your contact information if questions arise.
Yeah,
In the
does. Yeah, it's. You have my contact information,
I do.
Gary, if it needs to be
Oh, yeah.
shared.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Next. Is that housing review or?
Boss. Housing element review. So last month, we gave you a draft of the proposed housing element, housing chapter of the comp plan. Drew has been the lead on drafting this. I think he did an excellent job. We received one email comment, which we received from Commissioner Warman. Drew sent that to you all via email today, just so that you could all. We weren't quite sure if Commissioner Warman was going to be able to make it by Zoom or not, so we want to make sure you got our comments through email. And with that, we're just seeking feedback on the chapter you received. It's got a lot of new goals and policies in it. A lot of us are driven by stuff that we're required to do by recent laws on housing. And I'll hand it over to Drew from there.
I don't have much to add. We did, since the draft that you all received, we did make 2 minor updates. It was just a basically administrative thing. We added the, I don't know if you connection charges and impact fees for ADUs will be reduced to no more than 50% of the principal unit. That's in line with the House Bill, I think 1337. And then the other one was one other one. Sorry, I wrote it down and did not find where I wrote it down at. So here's 11.4, the development charges for ADUs. And then the other one. 13.3, and that's permitting mixed use developments in all commercial zones, which is in our city code right now. You can do mixed use in all C1s through C3, but it wasn't in our comprehensive plan, so that portion. Yeah, happy to discuss any comments or any feedback.
Actually, I'd like to ask if we can have like maybe another week to submit comments. I mean, since it's kind of a, I mean, Ann was pretty thorough on her comments there, but just to, make sure that there's, give extra time for additional comments if any of the other commissioners need, a little bit of extra time, if we can have like another week to submit comments.
Yeah, I mean, you can submit comments anytime you like. Just according to what we're kind of doing though, because now this week you're getting the land.
Right, yeah. According to the schedule, yeah, I understand that, so.
Of course, I mean, we're gonna be open to comments throughout the process, and as I said, after we've gone through each one of these step by step, we're gonna combine them all together and you're gonna get them back again.
Right.
And you'll be able to also at that time, we'll probably have a workshop, as I think I put in the schedule. And you'll have the opportunity to make comments then as well. Okay. I'm planning, my goal is to have what I call a commerce ready document by October. But that doesn't mean it has to be a final document. I'm not concerned about that. I'm just concerned about submitting something to Commerce that meets the GMA requirements. As long as, when we get to the finish line, we haven't removed any of those, which I don't anticipate we will, we'll be fine. So sure.
Thank you. Anything further on new business?
No, so, I mean, no discussion at all on the housing element? Anything?
I have a question on it still. This is Ann.
Go ahead, Ann.
I was curious. I went through the materials and I was looking for the actual population numbers that are behind all of the housing unit increase data. And I haven't been able to find that. Am I just looking in the wrong place? Or is it in a different section that we haven't been given yet?
So it is in the draft of the land use chapter that was sent last week for next month's review. So the land use chapter is, we're required to put some housing projections, but the population projections as well. So the number that you're looking for is 2045. The population is projected to be 25,000 and something.
Well, I can't just write that. I'm not in a position to write a lot of stuff down right this minute. If you can direct me to where to look, because I've been trying to find.
The land use chapter that I emailed to you, that was in the packet for this week.
Yes.
At the end of that chapter.
At the end of that chapter.
Yeah.
If I go all the way to the end. Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I'm looking for. Because I'm trying to put two and two together. Housing and the population to try to understand the growth that we're actually facing. I'll look in land use then. I was just surprised not to find it under housing, so my mistake.
Yeah, I think we just open the housing element by just saying it's supposed to more than double, but we could obviously put a number in here. But yeah, it's in the land use element. That's where it's required to be. And the numbers that we use are obtained from Thurston Regional Planning Council, who
Right, I do know that. And the population numbers are useful in other respects. That is for my other area that I focus on, which is parks. We need to base the park requirements on population.
Yeah, so what I was gonna say is we get those numbers from the Regional Planning Council, and the housing numbers were obtained through a very kind of long process over the last year that was required. And we've gone through this, but it's been a little while ago. But House Bill 1220 required us to participate with all of the other jurisdictions in the county, and we were led by Thurston Regional Planning Council, using a model that was supplied by the Department of Commerce to come up with what's called a housing allocation that would show the total number of housing units we need over the next 20 years and how many of those at what level of affordability. So that's stuff that Andrew has put in the, in the housing element chapter. But so it's, they're all formula-based numbers that are basically coming either out of Commerce or TRPC.
Right, and it was very, very helpful to include that analysis from TRPC because it did state that that's where the numbers were coming from and on the housing units. But I just didn't know where the population numbers were. I knew that they were supposed to come from the state, but I couldn't find them. That was the only problem. I didn't have a guide to say. It's
And
in
the
land
numbers,
use.
the numbers in the tables may fluctuate a little bit, and we'll continue to keep you up to date on those. But we're working with TRPC right now to do another evaluation of the land capacity analysis, taking into
Right.
account our mixed use and the rate that we're seeing mixed use in our commercial zones, and as well as some annexation possibilities. And so anyway, we're working with them on that. We just talked with them today about their scope of work, so there is more to come, but there is going to be a little bit of
Right.
tweaks
And
going
in
forward.
the email response that I got from Gary on my comments, Gary said that the housing types and the potential for us to potentially change some of our zones to include additional housing types were in the goals. Could we look specifically at that so I can see where that was? Because I didn't see anything that just popped out at me.
I'm sorry, Ann, can you repeat the last little bit of your question there?
In my email to Gary, I was concerned that we did not have any policies that were looking specifically at additional housing types being added to some of our zones that were not in our zones today with incentives and such. And he said, no, those are there. He said, at least that's what I got from the email, that it is there. So I'm looking for where.
There's a
Yes.
goal 5 in the land use section is encourage diverse residential growth. There's a few policies there.
Say so.
That's what
Gold 5.
It's in the land use chapter that for today.
Oh, it's in land use, not in.
That's what I'm looking at. That's something,
housing.
I don't know if that was also in the housing element.
Yeah, we've got some in housing too. I mean, there's, I forget where the little, because they're kind of peppered throughout, but there's, yeah, so go ahead, Andrew. You can read it.
So policy 5.1 shows or lists other innovative housing types such as cottage style to the permitted uses where appropriate. And then a few other incentives for affordable housing would be, just to shoot some off rapid fire, the 2 ADUs per lot, reducing development charges, upzoning for affordable housing projects, preserving and protecting manufactured home communities.
I stop there. Can you, Andrew, just a second? This implies to me, the preserve and protect existing manufacturing homes. This is the only place I found that mentioned. It implies that we're not going to allow manufacturing homes any place except where they already are. Is
I
that-
don't read it the same way. I read it
Okay.
as protecting what is here. In our code, we have, I don't remember in every zone, but manufactured housing communities are listed as an allowed use in many of our zones.
Well, I think what we're trying to get at with that one, which you probably even read in articles, there have been a lot of manufactured home communities that have been sold, and immediately upon selling, their rents are raised to the point that the people who live there can't afford to be there anymore. And some communities, and I'm not saying we will do this, this would be a council decision, but it's to put it on the table. Some communities have codes, municipal codes that require a certain amount of notice if a manufactured home community is going to be sold, to give the owners of within the manufactured home community the first right of refusal to purchase the community. I don't know how often that really works out, but just trying to come up with some strategies to maintain some of these more livable communities before they get sold out from under the people that live. So that's really the intent of that kind of a goal. And remember,
Right.
the comp plan doesn't implement anything. It just lays out the framework for the kinds of goals that we could then strategize to make codes for, but then it goes to council to see if that's where the council wants to go. I did want to say one more thing though about the land capacity analysis, because if you look in, I don't know if it's table, whatever, in your chapter, but it shows that we have a deficit of about 2,100 homes in terms of land capacity for, I believe it's 0 to 80%. I forget which affordable category. One thing that might change, Andrew mentioned, some of those numbers might change because we're getting ready to pursue a pretty big annexation in the city. We're gonna, assuming council approves it again, we'll take in about 8 areas of our urban growth area around the city, and it's 1,200 acres. When those come in, right now they're zoned 1 unit per 5 acres. When they come in, they will, according to our joint plan with Thurston County, they'll be rezoned to anything from 4 units to 6 units to 16 units per acre, and commercial. And in commercial, we allow mixed use development, so residential can go in there too. So we're having them analyze our land capacity as if that annexation had occurred. And we want to know then what the numbers would look like for our capacity to accommodate affordable housing after that annexation. So I'm hopeful that that'll change the numbers quite a bit. Because if you notice, we kind of came out on the short end of the stick in the Commerce formula for the number of affordable housing units that we're supposed to provide by 2045. And a lot of it is because they start at your baseline. How many do you have now? And the bigger cities had a higher percentage of affordable housing than we did. So we ended up getting more numbers. And by percentage of our population, really more of a burden. I'm hoping that, because this is the first time that exercise has ever been done, it's based on really new legislation. I'm hoping that over time we can work with Commerce to look at this issue and maybe adjust that model in the way they try to assign these affordable, because these are, there's no, we cannot make people come in and build affordable housing, and there are, as of yet, no consequences to the city if we don't meet those numbers. And they are pretty unobtainable numbers. So all we can do is try to figure out the best incentives and strategies that we can to make it attractive for people to do that.
And do you have any additional comments?
No, I'm curious for the annexation area. Would there be new manufactured home communities allowed?
In the zones, they'd be the same zones that we have in the city now, so that, yeah, the answer is yes.
This is
Once they're in the city, they would just be subject to the city's zoning regulations.
right. I know that, but I didn't hear manufactured homes as being allowed in the zones that the city was allocating to those new areas.
No, I think what Andrew said is manufactured homes are allowed in most of our residential zoning districts, if not all.
Okay, I misunderstood.
Okay, is there anything further on the housing?
No, sir.
Okay, moving on, there's no public hearing. Are there any subcommittee reports? And do you have anything on parks?
Well, there's Prairie Days. I missed it, but Prairie Days, I believe that it was well put together, and I think that it's it's a real asset to the city that we have that on a regular basis. So I was out of town, unfortunately.
Okay. All right, thank you. Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
All right.
I
Okay, meeting is adjourned at 4:42 PM. Thank you.
I was afraid we wouldn't